Hey guys, today I want to show you how to make this extremely handy dadoing jig to not only bring you repeatability, but also bring you some accuracy. Once you put this thing together and you start using it, you're going to be asking yourself why you didn't have this in your shop a whole lot sooner. So with the plunge router and a plywood bit, you can knock out dados and plywood in no time. And the reason why I needed to make this is I've got a current project going on that has a 7-foot long bookcase sides that are way too big to take to the router table or to safely cut here at the table saw. Sometimes the piece is so big you need to bring the tool to the piece instead of taking the piece to the tool. And this was a perfect opportunity for me to make this little jig that's extremely handy, and I thought that I would record this session to show you how I made it and why you'd want something like this in your own shop. So let's get started. To make this jig, I'm just using a scrap piece of MDF that I have in the shop. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, 10 inches wide, and roughly 4 feet long. And the final piece only needs to be 3 inches wide, so the first thing I do is set the fence to 3 inches to make the cut. Now that I have the 3-inch strip, I can cut the 2 pieces out of it. To do that, I'm going to be using the miter gauge. First thing I always do with pieces like this is clean up one end, and that way I know for sure the end is going to be 90 degrees to the edge, and that also means that I can use that edge to butt it up against the stop block to make the first cut, which is 18 inches. Next, I move the stop block to 12 inches and make the second cut, which gives me my 2 pieces. So to assemble this, I've got my 18-inch long piece sitting on top of the 12-inch long piece, and it's perpendicular. So just make sure it's flush on the edges, like so. Push back up against this miter gauge fence, which is a known flat surface, and this is a scrap piece that I had from this MDF board. It comes in handy because it's the same exact thickness, so it's going to allow this to rest on top of that just to make it a little bit easier. And you can test this by holding this still, moving this back, taking a combination square and checking to see if it's exactly 90 degrees to the bottom piece, and it is. So this method will work out just perfect for me, but if not, you can use something else like your table saw fence or some other type of material that you know that is perfectly flat. So to hold this into place, I'm going to be using a couple different methods. I'm first going to start off by using some CA glue as well as some wood glue, and what the CA glue is going to do is hold it into place temporarily, and it's going to be an instant bond so I can move this out of the way and put some screws in it. So to do this, I'm going to put some CA glue on the bottom piece, and then I'm going to spray the activator on the end of the 12-inch piece. The wood glue is probably not needed, but it's just a little extra. And this is the part where you're going to have to move pretty fast because you don't have a lot of time with that activator. Make sure everything's pushed up against the fence and you're good to go. Now we can install some screws. And the screws that I'm using are 1.25 inches long. So the next part of this process is going to be cutting this initial zero clearance cut. There are 2 things you need to keep in mind: the bit that you use and the router that you use, because this combination is going to be unique to this jig. When I cut this initial groove with this bit, that means that it's going to be a zero clearance cut for this bit. Now the bit that I'm using is a white side 23/32 plywood bit. And this is because plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, is not exactly 3/4 of an inch in thickness. There are some different materials that are 3/4, but the stuff that I use, which is your traditional shop grade plywood, is not 3/4 of an inch. It's actually a little bit thinner. So this bit is a 23/32, which is perfect for that plywood. Now it's also going to be unique to the router that you use because every router has a different size base. So whatever router you're going to be picking for this operation is probably going to be the one that you're going to want to use for every other operation using this jig. So with those 2 things set, it's time to make that initial pass and set that zero clearance. One final thing you need to do is you need to write on here what bit it's for and what router so you don't forget. Now we're ready to use it. This is the reason why I made the jig. This board that I need to run a dado across is over 7 feet long, and it's at the point now where it's too big to take the piece to the tool. You need to bring the tool to the piece. So it's really simple to do. I know that the bottom of the dado needs to start at 5 1/4. So I'm just going to make a mark at 5 1/4. Use my double square to bring that over to the edge, and then I'm going to bring it down, make a mark. And I only need one mark because this jig is going to take care of the rest of that for me. So now just line the jig up with my mark, clamp it into place, and I've got a perfect setup for the dado. And what we're left with is a dado that is perfectly perpendicular to the edge, and it's straight all the way across parallel to the bottom panel. It's just perfect. And so now what's awesome about this jig is that it is repeatable. No matter where you need to mark, line it up, make your cut. You know this is perpendicular to the this piece here, and then it's parallel all the way across with the bottom of this. You're going to get perfect dados every time. Again, using that 23/32 bit with this piece of plywood, just a little hammering, and now it's perfect. It's not too tight, just a little tap to get it off. Sand it a little bit, that'll make it a little bit easier to get in. It's going to give you perfect dados every time. Well, as you can see guys, this is a tool that you're definitely going to want to add to your shop if you don't have one already. It's easy to make, it's fast to make, and it's going to give you repeatability and the accuracy, and it's going to remove some of that second guessing yourself because you know exactly where it's going to cut that groove. So definitely make one if you don't have one in your shop. Appreciate you guys watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about this, or if you already have one of these in your shop, or if you have another method for making making dados in extremely large pieces like this, such as cabinetry. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video. Hit the thumbs down if you didn't, and subscribe to the channel if you're not. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next build video.